a young black single mother struggling in public. All she wanted was to buy a few items for her child, but instead she became the target of hateful racist taunts from 3 white men. The entire grocery store stayed silent. No one spoke up. No one stood beside her. But then from the far end of the frozen aisle, a man stepped forward, quiet, steady, unshakable, and in seconds, he stunned everyone into silence. That man was Barack Obama. No cameras, no spotlight, no script, but his actions that day sent a message that echoed across America. The fluorescent lights of the Savamart on Florin Road flickered as the automatic doors slid open, and Barack Obama stepped inside. It was early evening in Sacramento, California, just another ordinary day in an unremarkable part of town. That was precisely why he came. No cameras, no fans, just silence. Barack kept a low profile, gray hoodie pulled over his head, baseball cap low, wireless earbuds tucked in though they weren't playing anything. It was a trick he'd learned to avoid conversation. After months of public appearances and weeks of speeches, he wasn't interested in being recognized. He just wanted eggs, almond milk, oatmeal, and a few energy bars. He walked quietly past the aisles, eyes down, avoiding attention. A few teenagers debated over energy drinks near the back. An older couple examined apples, and somewhere across the store a baby cried. He liked the quiet. He liked being invisible. Just as he reached the frozen food section, a different kind of noise rose above the regular hum of the store. It wasn't yelling or shouting, it was sharper, mocking, loud enough to carry but just controlled enough to avoid drawing security, sarcasm soaked with cruelty. He turned slightly, just enough to see a young black woman, maybe 30, stood at one of the self-checkout kiosks. Her name tag read Latoya. She wore a faded navy polo with the logo of a janitorial company. Clutched tightly on her hip was a boy no older than 4 with wide, tired eyes and his thumb pressed to his lips. She was trying to scan a box of Cheerios and a pack of diapers, her hands shaking as she fumbled through her wallet. Behind her stood 3 white men, late 20s, jeans, ball caps, loud voices. One of them, heavy-set and red-faced, held up a can of beans and tossed it into his cart like he was shooting a basketball. "Hey, think I can get a discount if I wink at the cashier?" he said, laughing. His friend added, "Come on, man, she's just showing her boy how to work the system early. Got to respect that grind." The third one leaned in with a smirk and a whisper loud enough for everyone to hear. "Bet she's got 3 baby daddies. Minimum." Their laughter pierced the store, sharp and unrelenting. The cashier didn't say a word. The other shoppers looked away. It was like everyone had agreed to pretend it wasn't happening, but it was loud, clear, and laced with racial venom. Barack stopped walking. His reflection stared back at him from the freezer door, tired eyes, hoodie damp with sweat, jaw clenched. He had seen this before. Not in politics, not on stage, but in life. His grandmother had been Latoya once, a woman doing her best, working hard, holding it together for a family while strangers humiliated her in line for groceries. He remembered standing beside her at checkout, small, confused, and ashamed, not because of her, but because of how the world treated her. He remembered the silence of the people around them. He remembered the way she held her breath and swallowed her pride just to get through the day. The third man made a loud kissing noise. "Hey, sweetheart," he said. "Swipe that card twice, once for the kid, once for me." That was it. Barack dropped his shopping basket near the drink cooler. He walked slowly, quietly, like a storm gathering beneath calm skies. No one saw him coming until he was just a few feet behind the men. His voice was steady, low. "Step back." The 3 turned. The heavy-set one squinted. "You talking to us?" Barack didn't blink. Let her pay, then walk away. The woman, Latoya, looked up, startled. Her son clung tighter. There was no recognition in her eyes. She didn't see a former president. She saw someone standing where no one else would. "Mind your business, bro," said the second man, puffing his chest slightly. Barack took a step forward. "My business," he said evenly, "is not letting 3 grown men bully a mother in front of her kid. So yeah, this is my business now." The third man shifted his weight. The tension in the air became real. One of the teenagers nearby had already pulled out a phone. The guy in the ball cap and camo jacket didn't like the shift in power. He stepped forward and shoved Barack square in the chest. It wasn't hard. It wasn't smart either. Barack didn't move. He didn't stumble. He simply absorbed the push. Then, without raising his voice or changing his expression, he stepped in, grabbed the man's wrist, twisted it, and guided him to one knee with a simple, efficient motion. No punching, no threats, just precision and control. The man winced but didn't cry out. Barack leaned in and said quietly, "I'm not here to hurt you, but I could. Think about that." He released him and stepped back. The man stood slowly, pride bruised, and backed away. The other two followed without a word, their swagger gone. The silence in the store was thicker now, not of apathy, but awe. Latoya still stood frozen, her debit card trembling in her hand. Barack turned to her and spoke softer than before. "You okay?" She nodded, blinking back tears. Her son peeked up at him from her shoulder, thumb still in his mouth. Barack said, "You don't have to thank me. Just finish up. Get home safe." She bent to pick up the cereal box she'd dropped, but her fingers missed it. Without hesitation, Barack crouched, picked it up, and placed it gently into her cart. Then he said, not loudly but clearly, "You don't owe anyone an explanation for surviving." Latoya looked at him, startled. "What?" He stood and looked her in the eye. "I saw the way you were looking down, like you were about to explain why you were using that card. You don't have to. You're doing what you have to do for your kid. That's enough. That's more than enough." For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then an older woman, maybe in her 60s, stepped forward. "I'll walk her out," she said. "She's had enough for one day." Latoya nodded, eyes full but dry. She adjusted her son on her hip, swiped her card, and the machine beeped louder than usual. The groceries went into a bag. The boy wrapped both arms around his mother's neck like he wasn't letting go. As they walked toward the door, Latoya turned back. "I didn't think anyone would say anything. I didn't think anyone ever did." Barack gave her a small nod. They should have, and they should now. A few scattered claps rose behind him, but Barack raised a hand gently, not in anger, just to stop it. This wasn't a speech. This wasn't a performance. He picked up his basket and stood by the freezer, letting the weight of the moment settle. Someone from behind called out, "Hey man, what's your name?" Barack didn't answer. Not yet. It wasn't about his name. It was about something far bigger. Barack didn't stay long after that. He grabbed his basket and walked toward the far exit, the one by the side doors where delivery trucks usually parked. No fanfare, no more glances, just stillness. He didn't go back to pick up the almond milk or the energy bars. Somehow returning to the normal rhythm of grocery shopping after what had just happened felt wrong, like forcing small talk at a funeral. The air outside was crisp, touched by the kind of coolness that only comes after the sun has dipped below the rooftops. He stood for a moment near the exit, his hands buried deep in his hoodie pockets, and looked across the nearly empty lot. A few cars trickled in and out. No one was shouting, no one was recording, and yet he knew the video would be online already. That teenager in the candy aisle had been filming from the moment the tension began, and Barack had seen enough of the internet to know how fast things moved. He wasn't afraid of it, he just didn't care for it. This wasn't a scene from a campaign. It wasn't scripted. It was messy and human and raw, and now it belonged to everyone. He found a bench near the outer edge of the lot, sat down slowly, and pulled out his phone. Notifications were already lighting up the screened texts from numbers he didn't recognize, pings from social media accounts he rarely checked. The name Barack Obama was trending, and though he hadn't said a word to the press, his face had made its way into 1,000 captions. Barack Obama stops racists in Sacramento grocery store. Real-life hope protects black mother from harassment. One clip had been posted with the caption, "You don't owe anyone an explanation for surviving." That line, raw and unscripted, was now bouncing between accounts, quoted under pictures of single moms, veterans, and people holding EBT cards like quiet badges of shame. He watched the clip silently, saw himself enter the frame, saw the moment he took the man's wrist, saw Latoya's expression as he crouched to hand her the cereal. It was strange watching himself, not as a politician, but as a person. A man who didn't plan to speak but couldn't remain silent. A dark sedan pulled up near the edge of the lot. The passenger window rolled down slowly. Latoya sat in the front seat, her son asleep in her arms, breathing soft and deep against her shoulder. A woman in blue scrubs sat behind the wheel, likely a nurse, maybe a neighbor or friend. Latoya leaned slightly toward the window and called softly. He finally fell asleep. Barack walked over, hands still tucked in his hoodie. "He looks peaceful," he said. "He always does after he cries," she replied, "like he empties out and resets." She hesitated, then added, "I didn't expect anyone to help." "Not in a place like that. You shouldn't have to expect it, Barack nodded, but I get why you do. She looked at him, and for the first time her voice dropped into something fragile. I felt small, she said, her eyes on the dashboard, not on him. Like I didn't belong there. Like I needed to disappear. Barack shook his head gently. You belonged in there more than they did. She let out a breath that had clearly been trapped for hours, maybe days. I don't know if people like you know what it means, stepping in like that. Not just the words, but the timing. You didn't let it get loud. He shrugged slightly. I didn't do anything special. I just didn't pretend not to see you. Her eyes met his then, no tears this time, just something that looked like quiet recognition. Annoying between people who have been tested by the world in different ways but still feel the weight of it the same. If you ever want a home-cooked meal, she said, smiling faintly, I make a mean peach cobbler. Barack chuckled softly. That's tempting. The nurse leaned over slightly. We should get going, she said gently. LaToya waved, rolled the window up, and the sedan pulled out of the lot. Barack stood there for a moment, watching the tail lights fade, then turned and headed toward his car. He didn't check his phone again. He just sat in the driver's seat with the engine off, letting the stillness settle. He thought about his grandmother, how many times she had stood in lines like that, holding on to dignity with trembling hands. He thought about the cashier, eyes darting away. He thought about that little boy, eyes wide, watching the world fail his mother until someone chose not to look away. His phone buzzed again. A name flashed on the screen, his longtime friend and advisor. Barack answered. You good? The voice asked. No preamble. I'm fine, Barack replied. I saw the video. They already got your name up on every blog and news ticker. You want me to spin it or let it breathe? Barack sighed. Let it breathe. I figured, but brace yourself. This isn't going to be just another viral clip. People are talking. I didn't do it for that, Barack said simply. I know. That's why it matters. They sat in silence for a beat, then his friend asked, You heading home? Barack glanced at the clock. Yeah. All right. Call me tomorrow. Proud of you, man. Barack ended the call, started the engine, but didn't shift into drive. Instead, he let the car idle and thought about that phrase, you don't owe anyone an explanation for surviving. He hadn't meant to say it. It just came out. But now it had a life of its own. People were reposting it, sharing it with their own stories about being poor, being dismissed, being made to feel like they didn't belong in spaces where everyone should belong. The next morning, Barack's phone was useless by sunrise, battery drained, voicemail full. The clip had reached mainstream news. No edits, no dramatic music. Just him, put up, calm voice, controlled hands, and that line. Influencers began tagging him. Podcasts requested interviews. He didn't respond. He went for his morning run, same route, same pace, same solitude. His friend greeted him with a raised brow and a tablet in hand. Good morning, America wants you on tomorrow. Barack didn't even glance. I'm not doing press. This isn't press. This is people needing to hear from you. Barack paused mid-stretch. Let the video talk. His friend watched him for a moment. You remember what you used to say about choosing your battles? Yeah. You said you only fight when someone needs you to. Still true, Barack replied. Elsewhere, LaToya sat on her couch with her son asleep beside her. A friend had sent her the video clip. She hadn't even known someone recorded it. At first, she wanted to delete it, the shame was still fresh. But curiosity won. She watched it once, then again, then again. She heard her own voice, saw herself shrink, then saw him, Barack, stand up. Quiet, steady, no grandstanding. Just presence. She opened her phone, pulled up the Notes app, and began typing. She wrote about losing her job at the hospital laundry after the third round of layoffs. About picking up shifts at a motel to make ends meet. About the shame of pulling out her EBT card while strangers whispered behind her. About her son asking if people hated them because they were poor. Then she wrote about Barack. She ended the post with a line she hadn't planned to say, some people throw punches. Others just stand still so the rest of us can breathe. It was shared 100 times in an hour, then 1,000, then 10,000. The noise began to fade by the end of the week. The hashtag slowed down. The media cycle turned its head to the next scandal, the next trending clip, as it always did. But something quieter remained behind the headlines, a feeling that hadn't settled yet. Barack didn't care for the noise, never had. His life returned to the rhythm he understood: early morning runs through the still streets, reading in silence, writing with focus. The world could keep shouting. He would keep moving. But the feeling from that night didn't leave him, not like other moments had. It stayed with him, pressed into the back of his chest like a small stone he couldn't quite shake. Maybe it was the look on LaToya's face. Maybe it was the way her son had watched him, not with awe, but with cautious, quiet hope. Maybe it was his own reflection caught in that freezer door that reminded him of a time when he had no one to stand between his grandmother and a cruel world. On Friday afternoon, Barack pulled into the lot of the Southside Community Center on Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard. The building wasn't large, but it had a warmth about it: kids in mismatched sneakers running across the parking lot, parents sharing rides, laughter behind glass windows. He wasn't here to speak, not officially. He didn't come with cameras or staff, just a bag full of books and supplies, stuff some other kid might need. He carried the bag inside quietly, ready to drop it off and leave, but as he stepped toward the front desk, a voice called his name. Barack. He turned. LaToya stood near the entrance to the playroom, a binder tucked under one arm, her other hand gently resting on the shoulder of her son, Miles. The boy clutched a juice box in both hands, eyes wide as ever. LaToya smiled like she hadn't spent the last week going viral, like this was just another casual hello in a place where people belonged. Barack gave a small smile back. Didn't expect to see you here, he said. I volunteer on Fridays, she replied. They've got a parenting class, and I help with intake. It pays in juice boxes and crayon drawings. Miles stepped forward, tugging on the sleeve of Barack's hoodie. You helped my mom, he said, not loudly but with a kind of rehearsed gravity. Barack looked down at him and nodded. Yeah, I guess I did. Miles gave a tiny nod, then turned and walked back to his mother's side, sipping his juice like nothing more needed to be said. LaToya laughed, the kind of laugh that's less about amusement and more about relief. He's been practicing that line for days, said he wanted to say it himself. Barack shifted the bag in his hands. I've got some supplies I thought they might use: books, art supplies, a few extra notebooks. That's your thing, huh? Giving quietly. Barack shrugged. Loud doesn't always help. She looked at him for a moment, the noise of kids echoing faintly from the next room. I've been thinking about what you said about not having to explain. I'd never heard someone say it like that before. Not to me, not in public. He met her eyes. I meant it. She nodded. I know, took a minute, but I believe it now. She reached into her binder and pulled out a folded sheet of paper. I wrote something, she said, for Miles. It's kind of a letter, kind of a promise. I want him to know that surviving isn't shameful. It's not weakness, it's a kind of strength. I wrote it because you reminded me. She handed it to him. You can keep it. Barack took the paper, unfolded it briefly, then folded it back and slipped it into the inner pocket of his jacket. He didn't say thank you, he didn't need to. Miles had wandered off slightly, chasing a dust bunny near the corner of the room. LaToya watched him for a moment, then said, You know, I used to feel embarrassed walking into places like this, like I had to carry a story on my back for why I needed help. Now I just show up, no explanation, no apology. Barack looked at her, then nodded. That's real strength, he said. She raised an eyebrow. Is that what you teach when you speak? He paused. Fighting's the surface. The mindset, that's what changes people. They stood in that quiet for a while, just enough time for the air to settle. Not awkward, not heavy. Then LaToya glanced at the time and said, I should get back. I've got to check in a few more families. Barack lifted his bag, ready to drop it at the desk. She turned back before heading to the playroom. If you ever want that cobbler, she said with a soft smile, you know where to find me. Barack gave a small chuckle. That's dangerous. She disappeared around the corner, and he set the bag down near the donation box, nodded to the front desk volunteer, and walked back toward the parking lot. Outside, the sun was beginning to dip again, casting long shadows across the pavement. Barack paused by his car, pulled out the folded letter from his pocket, and opened it. The handwriting was neat. Thoughtful, a mother writing not from fear, but from clarity. The words hit him in places no award speech ever had. At the bottom, Latoya had written, "He'll know he's enough, not because the world told him, but because I did." He folded it again, slower this time, and placed it back into his jacket. The drive home was quiet, no music, just the low hum of the road and the gentle tap of tires across uneven pavement. When he reached his place, he didn't go inside right away. Instead, he sat in the driveway, staring up at the sky turning soft with dusk. His phone buzzed again, his friend. Of course, they still asking for interviews. The text read, "Every outlet, even Oprah's people called." Barack didn't respond. He wasn't chasing cameras. He wasn't trying to sell a story. What happened at the grocery store wasn't a performance. It was a pause in the noise, a moment when someone saw injustice and chose not to be another silent witness. A week later, a news anchor on a local morning show quoted his line, "You don't owe anyone an explanation for surviving." The studio guests nodded solemnly. The clip of Latoya's post was shared again, and her line followed close behind. "Some people throw punches, others just hold the line so the rest of us can breathe." And somewhere in a small community center, a new set of books was being passed to a teenager's hands, passed down by someone who knew exactly what it meant to stand still, strong, and without apology. Barack never posted about it, never mentioned it in interviews, but he remembered every detail, not for the world, for himself, and for the boy with the juice box who would grow up remembering that one night. Someone chose to see his mother, not just pass her by. And that was enough.